Hello, everyone, and welcome to Social Strategies Podcast. My name is Javier Vidania, and I'm sitting here with
Shelby Lehman.
Here talking to you about strategies that you could use on social media that helped us and can help you as well. Today, we want to talk about something that almost everyone struggles with unless you're a freak or crazy. How to just stop being a perfectionist when you're on the camera. Most people know they have to do video, so most people want to do video, but when it comes time to it and they hit record, they freeze, they don't like the way they sound, they don't like the way they look, and it just stops it, and they might make one or two videos, but then they just cripple under their self-anxiety and go back to what's comfortable. I would agree.
Yeah.
So I think first and foremost, Shelby, you are, well, first, before we begin, just want to do some quick plugs. If you guys have, please make sure to subscribe on whatever you're watching on, like it, leave a comment. It really does help. DM us if you're wanting any specific content and anything. And thank you to our great sponsor, Lizzie. We really appreciate the funds, and we appreciate you being here in spirit.
For all of the support. Thank you,
funds.
Lizzie.
Thank
leave
you,
Lizzie alone. Hashtag leave Lizzie alone.
Leave Lizzie alone. Alone, A-L-O-A-N.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's an important distinction.
Perfect. What else? Do we have any other sponsors? Thank you to Rensselaer
Thank you
Media.
to us for also sponsoring.
Oh, we're sponsoring. Yes,
Yeah,
we are
we're
sponsoring this because we're paying for this.
Yes.
Thank you to Shelby Lehman and Javier Vidania for sponsoring today's episode. Other than that, okay, Lizzie, I think first... Lizzie? Where are you,
I'm
Lizzie?
honored. I'm honored.
Shelby, you're probably the best person that I see do stories consistently. And stories are they're more personal. You're up there closer. And I know for myself, when I do a story, I probably do like 10 or 20 outtakes. So you seem to just do them so naturally, and you just get on it. So do you mind sharing? Were you always like that?
No, but I did have a leg up, I think, being the youngest in my family, and my older siblings taking photos of me all the time. And like I was their little plaything where they always, my middle sister was a photography major, so she was always like dressing me up and having me do things. And so I kind of got comfortable in that way. So, but in terms of the talking on the video content, I definitely have that inner dialogue that is very like self-critical. And I mean, even right now, I'm on this prescription that really dries out my lips. So my lips either look real crazy, Sahara Desert, or like so much Aquaphor, you could drown in it type of stuff. And I'm always like, oh my gosh, I feel like I have to explain myself every time I do a story so that people understand I'm not always like this. Or like I've had acne so much growing up too that it, like when I would have a really bad breakout, I really did not want to do stories. So I have the inner dialogue that I think a lot of people have about themselves. But I think coupling it with not taking myself too seriously and to reminding myself it's not about me, it's about helping people. And at the end of the day, Karen is probably not going to remember that my hair looked a little crazy. She's going to benefit from the tip that I'm about to give her. And that's going to make a meaningful difference for her. And just reminding myself to shift the focus away from myself. It's not about me. It's about the person on the other end.
Your post today, as of today when we recorded this, I mean, a really great post talking about, I think, self-questioning yourself or certain things that you question. What inspired that today?
I have so many meetings with realtors where I ask them, why aren't you doing more stories? Video content in general, but stories are so easy to execute. Why aren't you doing more of them? And I was just thinking of all of the reasons why they bring up why they're not doing stories, and they're perfectionists. And I also saw a quote this week where I don't know who it was from, but it was like, perfectionists don't ever get stuff done. Be an effective perfectionist. And also,
who said that?
I just told you I have no idea.
Shelby Lehman?
I'm going to quote, it's like the Michael Scott, quote another quote. But it's totally true. And I just think how sad it is that so many of us have so much to give, but we can't get out of our own damn head. And I think people are not realizing it, that when you allow that to cripple you from being effective, like it's okay to feel the fear, but you've got to freaking do it anyways. Because otherwise your competitor is out there executing, maybe making no damn sense, but they're gaining trust and they're getting clientele that you could have gotten. Your potential client is out there in whatever you do. And if they don't know you exist, they're going to fall prey to your competitor that maybe doesn't care as much as you do, maybe doesn't know as much as you do, but you're not showing up for them and you're letting these other people gain that ground. You're really doing a disservice for them. And we don't always think that way. We always think, about ourselves, but really it's not about you. It's about them.
I always get in my head because I see people who do these super long stories of 10 or 20, and they're just talking and talking, but they have such passionate fan bases. I can think of specific realtors that everyone loves, but I can't stand watching their stories. So what's the right length to do it, and how do you get out of your head like I do about that stuff?
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot in that question, but in terms of the lengths of the stories.
Lengths, and I mean, am I wrong in thinking that way, or am I right? Well, answer the lengths question first if you can.
Well, answer the what? The second question?
The length.
The length.
What's the right length?
So stories are typically, they're 15 seconds long, or if it's a photo, it's 5 seconds. But in how many stories to do? So I think what you're talking about is where someone will go off on multiple stories saying the same thing. It just keeps going to the next story.
Yes, 10, 20, 30.
Well, there's a lot to, I think it's totally okay for you to, they're not your type of person. There's a lot of things at play there. It can be just their overall personality. You might know something about them that you already aren't a fan of, and then that comes into play. It could be their tone of voice. There's all these little factors, and at the end of the day, you might not be their target audience. And they might, so if they were talking about, let's bring up what we were talking about in another episode, scuba diving. You're gonna be watching this so dumb or so bored at what they're saying, you're going to check out and be like, well, that was annoying. And then someone like me is going to be watching that being like, wow, brilliant. I love that little tip, or I feel the exact same way. A lot is at play in terms of how good of a storyteller they are, and also the topic. You can get away with however long of a little story segment. I think in general, people should be very concise because people's attention spans within the story environment is very short. But there are exceptions to the rule where sometimes someone can ramble on. But if they're telling a story about a time they got chased by the cops, you better believe I'm going to be watching every single of those stories. But I definitely find myself sometimes listening to someone who I really like. They ramble on, just how I'm rambling right now. And I'll just tap to the right of the screen, just kind of speed it up, try to get to that last story where they really get to the punchline of it. I think there is no rule. It just depends on how good of a story and storyteller you are.
So everybody has a threshold, and most people will watch a longer story.
Yeah, but
try not to ramble.
Yeah, try not to ramble, and don't lose sight of what your audience actually cares about, because you talking on and on about maybe a listing, if you're a realtor, it's probably not as interesting as you think it is. Yeah.
Very well said. What are some things you tell yourself before you do a story? Do we prepare
anything?
I
put that in my post. It depends on what I'm doing a story about. Typically,
I didn't read your post.
What? Okay.
I read the first few lines.
Okay,
and
cool.
I liked it.
Well, maybe I wasn't a good storyteller if you didn't read the whole thing.
I am. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's all good. So, anyways, what was the question?
What are some things
what do
you
I
do?
tell myself right before I do a story?
Or prepare in general. Is there a certain angle? Is there a certain lighting you look for?
No, I just kind of see okay, is this a somewhat interesting angle? I more so just prepare on what I'm actually about to say. This is being filmed, right?
Yes.
Why are you picking your nose right now?
I'm not picking my nose.
I'm saying that for all the podcast people.
Oh my gosh. Stop. I feel like a little kid.
Stop. With an H in it. STAHP. I really don't say much other than mentally prepare what I'm going to say. Sometimes if I have a point to make, but it overflows into maybe 17 seconds, I'll refilm it to see if I can get into that 15 seconds just to make it into one little story segment. That's really it. It kind of goes, if I'm feeling extra self-conscious that day, then I just kind of remind myself what I said earlier about okay, deep breath, this is not about me, this is about my client. And especially in my realm of what I help agents with, I need to be showing up consistently every single day.
You need to do what you teach.
Yeah, I need to walk the walk. And if I'm not putting out,
you need to walk the line.
Yeah,
Can't think of
you.
any other things.
If I'm not putting out enough
You need to
content,
be there.
yeah, be there. I'm allowing other people to control this narrative, especially if I'm not showing up with my face.
What people
in
are you
video.
talking about?
What people are you talking? I don't know, random peeps.
They.
But
Don't let they win.
So, for example, like, I just gave this example in the meeting I had right before this, but if you were to go out to lunch with friends, let's imagine me. I'm going out to lunch with friends, and I don't know you, but I'm like, yeah, I think I might want to buy a house. And they're like, oh, who, like, do you have a realtor? And I'm like, yeah, I think I want to use this guy named Javier Vidania. And let's imagine you don't do a lot of stories. And maybe your Instagram is a little bit of a ghost account. There's going to be someone in there that does some research and is like, really, this guy? He doesn't post anything. Like, does he do a lot of business, or like, what's he about? And I'm gonna be like, I don't know. He just started like following me, and he's really the only realtor that I know. Then they have an opportunity to be like, oh, you should check out this realtor. Like, look at all these tips that they're giving. Like, they can
Those are conversations that people really have, by the way. I've heard them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just talking just like that.
Yeah, and it's the first impression of the brand and the content, and over time. And if you're not putting out content, you're allowing other people to control that story of what your brand is. But if you're putting out more stuff, like if you had a bunch of stories that day, even if my friend was like, really, I don't know, he's not posting a lot, but then I see your story and you're giving tips and you're giving me value, then you at least have a fighting shot of changing my mind versus what my friend just said at the lunch.
You need to always have a purple ring, right? The ring that gets purple on your profile picture. Oh yeah,
it's like purple and pink or
it always has to be there. You always have to have a story.
Yeah, have a story up. There are some days where I wake up in the morning, I'm like, oh my gosh, I see the blue plus sign, like I need to put a story out. So then it's like a mad dash of finding something that I'm inspired enough to post on a story. But yeah, what do you, because you're always on video on YouTube.
On
YouTube.
Sometimes my stories, I know, I only save my stories for special things, and I think that's wrong. I think I need to do more stories about me showing houses, me doing that. And then when I look at other realtors doing stories of showing houses, I get all like sad. I get all sad boy. Bless you.
Excuse me, thank you.
Yeah, no.
You get sad boy because
I do, because I was like, why don't I do that? I struggle with the same thing.
A lot of realtors suck with what they're doing though on Instagram.
They suck, yeah. So I think of one situation when people do something too much and it annoys me, and I'm like, I don't want to be that, so I'll just stop. But it's okay to show yourself showing a house once in a while.
I think that logic people apply to so many situations where I don't like it when they do it, I don't want to do it, but there's the caveat of you don't like what they're doing because it's not interesting to you.
True. What do I do? Well, first and foremost, let me just go with some basic principles, and then I'll say what I've done. Most of the time, whenever you have thoughts about yourself on camera or the way you sound, it is you thinking that. It's not anybody else thinking that. When someone else sees a footage of you talking or how you look or your side profile, they say, "Oh, that's you," right? But we're so used to looking at a very nice mirror of ourselves, or not even our voice, but a muffled version of our voice, so we can hear through the inside of a mouth and then coming out to the inner of our ear canal. You don't know who you really are. So a lot of times for those first, few videos I made where I just hated the way I looked, or I didn't like the way I sounded, I simply just sucked it up. I was like, nope, this is it. I'm not just telling myself I'm just not handsome. It is what it is. And I post it, and that's it.
I'm just not handsome. That is what it is.
But with that being said, I always do have a specific angle I go for. So if it's on Instagram, I always pull out my camera first, and there's always a better lighting. So it's always if you're outside, don't shoot with the light behind you, shoot it at the light in front of you. So I'll pull out my camera, and I'll just kind of rotate until I find the right lighting. If I'm in a studio, if the lighting isn't right that day, I just will not shoot. It's that simple. I can buy the nice lighting and do all that, but I wouldn't want to recreate that. I want to have a natural setting. If you're going for that studio light thing, then go for it, right? I always have the camera. I learned this from my wife. You go a little higher, so that way you're looking up a little high, and then you rotate a little down. That's it. It just cuts this. And yes, I have it. I'm sure you guys have noticed already. It just helps cut it. And when it comes to stories specifically, I love doing stories, and I try not to ramble. But I always apply those things. But like I was saying, a lot of times the people's fears of themselves on camera, it's all in your brain. Like you just get over yourself. Like everyone sees you this way already, unless you go do plastic surgery and then you're looking like crazy. It's just in your head, and that's the way that you see yourself. So what you have to do is you have to record yourself and pretend you're editing something else. Like you just get out of your head. But on the contrary, I'm kind of crazy. I've always loved talking in front of a camera. I've always loved the feeling of creating something, seeing myself, editing, recording, and audio and everything. And on top of that, in my first dozen videos on YouTube, you'll find them still to this day. There's been times where I mess up the audio, or I mess up the way I'm sitting, or there's a speck on my shirt, or there's a booger hanging. Not booger, but my hair doesn't look as great as it should. And I looked bad. As a matter of fact, last week's episode, I noticed I have a patch in my beard. I'm like, oh, that's horrible. Oh, well. You just you take the punch and you move on. Any piece of content's up there is better than having no piece of content. Mm-hmm. So what I'm trying to say is, even if there's a mistake in that video, as long as the content's good, you put it up there. To this day, at least once or a few times a week, I get someone who comments on a video that's a year and a half old. Hey, this music's a little too loud. Hey, you're a little too close. Hey, your face looks greasy today. Hey, this or that
YouTube
or the other.
is just that kind of environment, by the way.
Yes. And I used to respond to everyone, yeah, so I made this video 2 years ago. I've actually improved a lot in quality. If you want to go check out my other videos. But people will always do that. But I've learned to just be like, it's YouTube. It's like, what am I going to do?
Yeah. That never happens on people's Instagrams here.
No.
I mean, maybe it's celebrities, but it very rarely does it happen on an
and it does hurt, and you learn to live with it. But on Instagram, no one's gonna have the gall to do that, so you don't have to worry about that.
It's a bit more supportive.
But if it's YouTube, I mean, it's a random person saying that, and it's funny because you can have 100 great people saying it was a great video. One person says something like your nose looks big, and it's gonna eat you alive. Mm-hmm. You just grow a thicker skin. And you learn how to take breaks. I took a break for about 4 months. I just got back on. I don't get notifications from my comments. I went and checked them whenever I need them. Now I've turned it back on. My wife literally, I was at evening about, I think a little bit before Christmas, and I just started getting like someone had posted a long post about how I'm ruining realtors and that you're always talking bad about realtors and you shouldn't be doing this, and you're inflating your sense of this and that or the other. You're bad for the community. And I looked at the guy, and he's a aspiring YouTube realtor trying to do what I do, but not doing it well. Mm-hmm. So I was commenting all this nice, like, I'm going to da. And my wife took my phone away. She made me delete the studio app. Like, you're not ready for this mentally. Mm-hmm. And she took it away. And I have not been notified on every comment I get. I get about maybe 20 or 30 comments a week. Mm-hmm. And I just get back. And you just grow thick skin, and you learn to take breaks when you need it. Mm-hmm. If you start getting some traction on YouTube.
And I feel like that happens probably so much on YouTube too, because so much of that viewership, they don't know you in real life.
They don't know you, and they don't have their name and their face to them.
And people don't, it's kind of like a mob mentality, I think, on YouTube. Like when I look at I love looking at comments on some of these videos, especially like Bachelor recap videos. Oh my God. But like the comments where even if it's trashing someone, but if they agree with it, they'll like that comment. And they don't realize that them liking that comment all of a sudden is increasing that number. So the person who that video is even about is going to see that. Mm-hmm. And that person might have been joking about it, but it really hurts them. I'll never forget. Remember when I was making all those videos when I was like 12 or something, posting on YouTube? And this one girl left a comment, homely. I didn't even know what that word meant.
What's homely mean?
Ugly.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was so young. I didn't even know. I don't think my parents even knew that I was on here. And I looked it up in the dictionary. And that was like the first time I've ever been like cyberbullied. Mm-hmm. And
oh, my gosh.
And oh, my God.
That's not cyberbullying. I guess it is. Okay, yeah, you're right.
For like a 12-year-old.
But why would she not just write ugly? Ugly's 4 words.
Well, she's too sophisticated, apparently. She had to use
a sophisticated cyberbully. So, I'm gonna bully this girl. Yes.
Yeah, this 12-year-old brace face in Wickenburg, Arizona.
So how did that affect you?
I was like, what? I was shooketh, as they would say. So anyways,
yes, as I used to say 5 years ago.
I replied this long comment saying like,
defensive right away.
I know that you have a keyboard right now, and you probably think you're so powerful. you know exactly what I would like. The ultimate Karen as a 12-year-old like type of move, and like well thought out. And she literally like replied to that like it was a joke. Chill. And I'm like, okay, first off, I don't know how that ain't. That's not really a funny joke either. Like there's no thought behind the joke.
That's just them backing.
Yeah, it was just dumb. But I remember that first like negative impact. I was 12 though, so obviously that's a different. I wasn't equipped really to handle that type of feedback. But I kept making videos. I kept making videos because I think it kind of at that point I was like, F it. Like, just do it.
You have to be like that, yeah.
Like, you can't really,
like,
you kind of
have
ugly,
to own
might
as well. I'm homely. I might as well keep going.
Yeah, I joke all the time to my fiance. I was like, I hope our kids look like you when they're young because I was real rough looking. Like, you just kind of have to, whatever. You're never going to be everyone's cup of tea.
Yeah. And people aren't watching you because of your looks. Dude, there's a realtor out there that started copying my videos, and he has he hired a professional videographer, and he's way more handsome than I am. And yeah, I mean, it's not, it's not kicking as much views, but people aren't going to be like, oh, this guy's more handsome, I'm going to watch him more. Like, people are going to watch you for your content, not for the way you look.
For the value,
The value and content they get.
The people who are just...
Ugly, if you're ugly, you might even be better, because they feel better about themselves.
Aren't going to pay you for a service just on your looks. Maybe they will if they're like really wealthy and they really don't care about their money. But they're going to trust you if you're delivering value, and they'll pay for that. And that's like, I think Adele said like years ago when she was getting all these comments about her weight, she was like, I sing for the ears, not the eyes.
Wow.
And obviously she's lost a ton of weight and looks like amazing whenever. But like, I think that totally applies to value too. If you're giving enough value, people are not going to care what you look like if you're changing their lives.
True. That's funny you say that comment, because I remember one of the first videos I actually got traction I made was in one of my previous attempts to do a channel. I made a video when a certain person won the presidency, and I made a video crying about how it was going to affect my life. And 50-50, I got like 2,000 likes, 50 dislikes, 50% likes. And I've got some nasty comments about me and my family there. And I would respond to each one of them. And one person in particular responded to each comment I did. Every day would wake up and put a new comment on that video and talk about more nasty things. And the next day, another nasty thing and another nasty thing. And these trolls, you eventually will find someone that's just nasty. And the best thing I've learned to do is on YouTube, at least you can block them, or they don't feel blocked and they can still comment and look at your videos.
But no one sees it?
But no one sees it, and you don't see it. I've had maybe
Instagram has that setting
3 or 4 times where I got a hater. One was actually one that was looking to buy a home here, and it was a time where I was really busy and it was really far away, and he says I didn't follow up whatever. And he got so nasty every single day, a nasty comment. Every single video I would post, a nasty comment that this guy is a snake and all this and other. I just did that. You when this negativity comes, you have the option to. There's certain tools that these sites have provided you where they feel like they're still part of it, but they're not anymore. And I think you should use that if it gets to an ugly point.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. There's certain things that like, in spite of, obviously this topic is like stop being a perfectionist, but mentally prepare, like eventually if you're putting yourself out there enough, you will get a few trolls.
Everybody, absolutely everybody. Kim Kardashian has trolls.
Yeah. And know the settings that are in place to help your mental health, because it's also not just affecting you, like they can also affect the people who are following you and seeing those type of comments. And so that's
especially
always
if you're
good.
replying, being defensive, it's not a good look.
Yeah.
It's never a good look to be defensive.
Okay, so we talked about like being a perfectionist, that's stopping you from creating content based on like the superficial stuff that we often think about. Let's also talk about, there's a big reason why people don't produce content, and that's because they're afraid of saying something incorrect. This is really true if you're covering a topic like real estate. A lot of realtors are afraid to say something that maybe some person who is a know-it-all or way more experienced than them is going to go in the comments saying like, they're going to take it as an opportunity to show how much they know, basically.
I've had about a dozen of those people, because I'm not a lender, so I don't speak and I always tell them at the beginning of my videos, I always say this is based off my opinions. If you want the actual real stuff, go talk to a lender, right? So I've said certain things about lending. I won't get into specifics, but I just get like general vague ideas of certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And I will get a lender that goes on and says, you're wrong, you're misleading people, this, that, or the other. Every single time I've gotten a comment like that, I check their profile, and guess what? They're aspiring YouTube creators.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just not getting enough traction, and they feel the need to go to my videos and shit on my videos.
Mm-hmm.
People are not going to follow you for your perfection.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. As a matter of fact, there was something I've said for years now where I used to say, one of the requirements for buying a house is you need to be at least 2 years in your current job or in the same field. And if you switch jobs, you need to wait another 2 years, pardon. Well, guess what? It turns out as long as you switch jobs and you remain W-2, you're fine. Mm-hmm. And I said that for multiple videos. And now in my new videos, I'll make fun of the fact that I said that. Mm-hmm. I know I used to say this, but guess what? This, that, or the other. Mm-hmm. So as long as you give people aren't going to watch you to be the perfection, this perfect. You're not a lawyer. You're not anything like that. People are going to you for some general idea of help, and they probably don't know much about the topic anyway. If you're able to help them at least a few percentage points and they're a little more knowledgeable, then that's helpful. Instead of them you're not trying to build, you're not a college professor trying to teach people into degrees. You're just just like a person trying to give general knowledge so people feel more comfortable so they can go talk to that professor.
Mm-hmm. And I think there's, like you mentioned, the lawyer type. So I'm trying to think for these other industries, there are topics where honestly
Yes.
you should be a responsible content creator and educate yourself. Like lenders
can't say certain things. You can't say certain things, right? Yeah. On the video.
You should be a responsible content creator and educate yourself as much on the topic, but it shouldn't prevent you from talking in general.
Like and also your knowledge, just your general experience.
Yeah.
That's not wrong.
And, in our industry, I think there is some more freedom to learn as you go than obviously a lawyer. Like if a lawyer were to post something and it be incorrect, I think they kind of have to do a little bit more of damage control maybe if it wasn't incorrect. And on YouTube too, you're going to get way more of that, the comments of people saying like, you're wrong, because that's just like that community. On Instagram, for the most part, like it rarely happens. It just rarely happens in general because most of those people already know you. They might direct message you and say like, hey, you missed this about that topic, or they might direct message you if they feel comfortable that way. And it's always an opportunity to learn. Like I might 6 months from now say something that, hey, on this podcast episode, I said this. I actually want to add to that. Or this changed with Instagram or, like any of the platforms that you should know, because it might not always be accurate. And a lot of this is opinion based and like personal experience based.
That's all it is experience. A lawyer can make YouTube videos. Yeah. If they say, hey, by the way, this is based on my experience. If you want the real stuff, go talk to a lawyer before you. This isn't legal advice. You're giving tips so they can go talk to somebody.
Yeah, they should add the caveats to that. So
yeah. I always say in all my videos, like, go once you're ready to go, talk to a realtor lender. Every state's different. Every state's gonna be. I talk about specific loan programs to Arizona. I'll get questions all over the country, and I always make sure to say this is just in Arizona. Talk to your lender to verify certain things. Yeah. So, but don't let that. I mean,
the other thing too that I tell people is like, say it with enough confidence. And you also get rid of a ton of people who would even think of trying to start a little comment war with you. Yeah. Because look at all the things in our life where if you probably watch so many things where you're like, ugh, don't agree with that, wrong. But they're so confident about it that they're gaining trust, they're gaining clients, even if they're wrong. If you say something like, especially talking to you who you might be a little bit wary of creating content because you're afraid, maybe you're a new realtor or someone new in your field, you're afraid of saying something wrong. I always feel that way too. First, before I like post something, if I'm speaking specifically on like technical aspects of the platform, I will research it right before I post it just to like validate, yes, my thinking's correct. Before I post it, it's going to give me that extra boost of confidence in my thought or what I have to say. But then also just be really confident when you deliver it. Mm-hmm. I kind of like compare it to street smarts where like if you're a solo female walking down a street, you're a bigger target for people. I know, just stay with me. You're a bigger target if you walk like you don't know where you're going, like you're not that confident. But if your body language is, I'm confident as hell, I know where I'm going, you're not as big of a target. People will not want to pick a fight with you or try to take your purse like they would the person who's like, with their phone, like, where am I going? I think it's a similar type of deal when you're delivering content. Be confident with your opinions. It's okay to change it later on, but like be confident with your opinions, and people can trust you more.
Some people don't even change their opinions. Lizzie Hofer, if she was here, she's not here, would say that the most popular people out there, or the ones that are getting most attention, are opinionated. Dave Ramsey, you may not agree with everything, but he's opinionated and he's passionate about what he says, and he's confident. CNN, Fox News, whatever the political flow is, people go there to hear those people's opinions. Are they right? Are they wrong? It doesn't matter. They get paid for their opinions, and that's what people go for.
And you want to watch that. Like if I was posting stories, be like, you guys, this might be true for some, like if I was.
No, just be like, stories help you and they'll increase your business by 10 times.
Fact.
And people are going to, you'll piss off one person saying, that's not true. But it'll motivate 99 people to be like, you know what, you're right, I'll do stories.
Versus if I was like, you might want to think about, like it just doesn't have the same effect. You don't help as many people either.
True, very true.
Okay, do you have any more?
That's it. I think that's all the time we have for tonight. Thank you so much for watching the Homely Podcast with Shelby and Javier.
You're watching a podcast with a bunch of self-conscious people helping other self-conscious people.
That's the craziest thing, is that people think we're self-conscious like anyone else.
Yeah, you just learn to quiet the voice.
Yeah, you quiet it, you get numb to it, whatever. So anyways, just two homely folks out here helping social strategies, folks. Anyone out there who is also homely, leave us a comment, like, subscribe, do what you got to do. We learn new things here every day. Thank you so much. You know what's funny, too, is I actually implement and learn things that I learn here in our conversation. So
same.
I hope if you are watching it, for our 1 or 2 people out there, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Any last wise words?
No. Leave us a comment or
DM us
if you actually like this content, or if we should switch it up, because that's the only way we're going to know if you're actually enjoying it. So please don't just be a lurker and actually engage with us, because we want to know what you found most valuable and what you want to see from us or hear from us.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. Have a good one.